Charred Barzan corpses littered the blood-soaked battlefield as General Oren stared into the smoke-filled sky and whispered a desperate, heretical prayer. Humans, forgive me. I have no other choice. For millennia, the Galactic Council had forbidden contact with humans, the most violent and unpredictable species in the cosmos. But now, watching his people butchered by krill plasma scythes and gene plagues, Oren saw no alternative. Steeling himself, the Barzan general composed a secret message and broadcast it across the stars to distant Earth. To the warriors of Terra, I am General Oren of the Barzan Alliance. My people face extinction at the hands of the Krill Empire. Our fleets are ashes, our armies broken. You humans are our final hope. I beg you, send us your mightiest champions, your most lethal soldiers. Help us defeat the Krill, and the Barzans will forever be in your debt. Your plan is madness, Oren shouted over the roar of the engines. That device will kill everything within 50 clicks of the detonation point. Warren grinned, the expression cold and feral. That's the idea, General. We're not here to play nice. We're here to exterminate these bugs once and for all. The dropship plummeted toward a vast fissure in the hive's obsidian black surface. Warren leapt from the opening cargo hatch, the bomb strapped to his back, and plunged into the abyss. Oren, his heart's pounding, followed. They hit the hive floor hard, the impact driving the breath from Oren's lungs. Around them stretched a nightmarish organic labyrinth of pulsing tunnels and undulating walls that oozed sickly yellow fluid. The fetid stench of krill pheromones hung thick in the air. From the shadows scuttled hordes of krill drones, their mandibles clacking in blind rage. Warren unslung a plasma rifle and opened fire, the searing bolts ripping through chitin and flesh with horrifying ease. Oren drew his own sidearm and fired, fighting down revulsion as twitching krill bodies piled around them. "Cover me," he ordered Oren, then charged the queen with a wordless roar. The queen lunged, slashing with scythe-like claws. Warren parried the blow with his sword, then riposted with inhuman speed. The blade sizzled as it clove through the queen's armored hide, drawing a shrill scream of pain. They traded blows in a whirlwind of slashing claws and flashing plasma, Warren moving with a savage grace alien to Oren's eyes. The queen scored a glancing hit, her talons ripping a gory furrow in Warren's shoulder, but the human barely seemed to feel it. With a final roar, Warren leapt and brought the plasma sword down in a searing arc. The blow sheared through the queen's neck in a spray of ichor, decapitating her in a single ruthless cut. As her headless carcass crashed to the ground, Warren raised her dripping head in one hand and howled to the vaulted ceiling high above. Oren sagged back against a pulsing wall, his weapon slipping from numb fingers. He had seen skilled warriors before, but nothing like this. Nothing like Warren. Nothing human. The death of the queen sent shockwaves through the hive. In the tunnels, the krill twitched and reeled, the overmind that guided them suddenly silenced. Seizing the moment, Warren pulled the neutron bomb from his back and armed it. Then with a world-shattering blast, the neutron bomb detonated. A searing flash lit the belly of the clouds. A roiling wave of plasma and radiation exploded outward, vaporizing everything it touched. Krill warriors and workers and larvae vanished in the blink of an eye, their millennia-old hive reduced to component atoms. When the maelstrom cleared, nothing remained of the hive but a boiling sea of glass, its surface marred by the wind-scoured bones of dead krill. The stench of burning chitin mingled with the ionized tang of vaporized rock. Oren stared down at a dead world murdered for the sin of harboring his enemy. As the dropship angled into orbit where the human fleet waited, Oren's gaze met Warren's. The human smiled, his teeth very white in his soot-streaked face. Oren didn't answer. He only closed his eyes and prayed that the Galactic Council would never learn what he had unleashed upon the stars. The acrid stench of scorched earth and melted metal hung thick in the air as Commander Warren strode through the rubble-strewn streets of the Barzan capital. His boots crunched over shattered glass and twisted rebar, the devastation a stark reminder of the ferocity of the human assault that had driven out the krill invaders. Warren's weathered face creased into a frown as he surveyed the ruins. At 53, he'd seen his share of battlefields, but the scale of destruction here was staggering. He pushed aside a twinge of unease. This was war, and war demanded sacrifice. Inside the makeshift command center, once a grand government building, now a gutted shell, Warren hunched over holographic displays depicting Barzan space. Red icons representing human warships swarmed through the sector, securing strategic choke points and resource-rich worlds. "Status report," he barked at a nearby lieutenant. "Sir, we've secured 80% of Barzan territory. Resistance is minimal. Our scout ships have begun probing neighboring systems." Warren nodded, a predatory gleam in his steel-gray eyes. "Excellent. Prepare for the next phase. I want—" A commotion at the entrance cut him off. General Orrin burst in, flanked by two other Barzan officers. The alien's face tentacles writhed in agitation. "Commander Warren, we must speak," Orrin said, his translator struggling to convey the urgency in his tone. "Your forces, their methods are too extreme. The collateral damage—" Warren's face hardened. "General, need I remind you that it was your people who begged for our help? We delivered results. The Krill are gone." "Yes, but at what cost?" Orrin gestured wildly. "Entire ecosystems sterilized, civilian casualties in the millions." "Acceptable losses," Warren cut him off. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a war to run." Orrin's companions murmured in awe, their eyes fixed on the strategic displays. Warren caught snippets of their conversation. Unprecedented success, galactic shockwaves, new era of warfare. Disgust twisted Orrin's features as he stormed out. Warren watched him go, a flicker of suspicion igniting in his gut. He'd have to keep a close eye on that one. Days later, alarms blared throughout the command center. Warren snapped awake, adrenaline surging. "Report!" "Commander Warren," Corax's voice reverberated with barely held back fury. "You will withdraw your forces immediately. Your presence here violates countless treaties." "With all due respect, Admiral," Warren snarled, "we're here at the Barzan's request. Your precious council sat idle while the Krill butchered them. You have no right to interfere now." "You forget yourself, human," Corax's eyes flashed. "The council's authority is absolute. Remove your ships, or we will remove them for you." The transmission cut off. Warren's fist clenched as he stared at the tactical display. Human warships and the Council Armada faced each other across the void, weapons primed. "Sir," his XO asked nervously, "your orders?" As the human fleet prepared to depart, Warren cornered Orrin in a bombed-out corridor. "I know what you did," Warren growled, looming over the Barzan. "Contacting the Council behind my back. I should have you shot for treason." Orrin's tentacles trembled, but he stood his ground. "I did what I had to save my people, from the Krill, and from you." Warren's eyes blazed. "This isn't over, General," he snarled. "Humanity will not be constrained forever. Your council has delayed the inevitable, nothing more. We'll be back, and next time, the galaxy will be ours for the taking." He stormed off, leaving Orrin alone in the rubble. The Barzan general sagged against a crumbling wall, a cold dread settling in his hearts. What had he unleashed? What terrors would humanity bring when they returned? As Warren's flagship rose into the atmosphere, engines thundering, Orrin made a silent vow. He would do whatever it took to ensure humanity remained contained. The fate of the galactic realm might well depend on it. Orrin's footsteps echoed through the ruined corridors of the Barzan capital as he made his way to the emergency session of the High Command. His hearts raced, Warren's chilling words replaying in his mind. "We'll be back, and next time, the galaxy will be ours for the taking." The makeshift war room buzzed with tension as Orrin entered. His fellow generals, their face tentacles twitching with anxiety, fell silent at his approach. Without preamble, Orrin activated a holographic display. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice grave, "what I'm about to reveal will shake the foundations of our understanding." Ancient texts materialized in the air, followed by DNA strands and archaeological images. Orrin's tentacles danced across the controls, bringing up file after classified file. "Humans are not the saviors we believe them to be," he continued. "They are a plague we unwittingly unleashed upon ourselves. For hours, Oren presented the damning evidence. He showed them grainy footage of human warships obliterating entire planets, read accounts of species driven to extinction by Earth's relentless expansion. The room grew colder with each revelation. General Kazna, her scales dulled with stress, spoke first. This cannot be. The Council. Humanity will lead us to greatness, he screamed. You can't stop the tide. Oren's stunner crackled. Watch me, he growled. When the last pockets of resistance were crushed, Oren knew more drastic measures were needed. He sent an encrypted message to Admiral Corax, arranging a clandestine meeting. Corax's crystalline form towered over Oren as they met in the flagship's secure chambers. The Admiral's multifaceted eyes narrowed as Oren laid out his case. You understand what you're proposing? Corax rumbled. The political fallout alone. Are you certain about this course of action, General? Corax's multifaceted eyes glinted with concern. Oren steeled himself. We have no choice, Admiral. The evidence speaks for itself. The council chamber buzzed with tense murmurs as representatives from 1,000 worlds took their seats. Oren felt their curious gazes boring into him as he approached the central podium. With trembling appendages, he inserted the data crystal into the holoprojector. Images flickered to life around them. Ancient battles, burning worlds, species driven to extinction. Gasps and cries of shock rippled through the assembly as the true history of humanity unfolded before their eyes. For hours, Oren presented his case. He showed them grainy footage of human warships obliterating entire planets, read accounts of Earth's relentless expansion. With each revelation, the Council's mood darkened. Debate raged through the night, voices raised in anger, fear, and disbelief. But as the enormity of the situation sank in, a grim consensus emerged. What they found chilled Oren to his core. Then came the final blow, intercepted transmissions revealing human scientists reverse engineering Barzan technology. The Council's last doubts evaporated. In a narrow vote, the resolution of severance passed. Earth would be erased to preserve galactic peace. As the grim news sank in, Oren retreated to his quarters. He stared out at the stars, wrestling with the weight of what he'd set in motion. His comm unit chirped, a secure message from a human contact on one of the soon-to-be dismantled colonies. Oren's heart raced as he read the desperate plea for help. In that moment, he knew he couldn't let this happen without giving humanity one last chance. With trembling hands, he began composing a warning message to Earth. If he could get it past the Council's communication blackout, maybe, just maybe, humanity could prove itself worthy of redemption before it was too late. Oren's fingers flew across the console, encoding the warning message with every encryption algorithm he knew. His heart pounded as he initiated the transmission, praying it would penetrate the Council's communication blackout. Summon the War Council, Akira barked into his comm. Now! Within hours, Earth's top military and scientific minds huddled around a holographic display, poring over the data Oren had risked everything to send. The room fell deathly silent as they uncovered the horrifying truth of humanity's origins. General Chen banged his hand on the table. So the Council wants to judge us for crimes committed before we even achieved sapience? Hypocrites! Sir, a young scientist interjected, with this alien data, we might be able to... Do it, Akira cut him off. Whatever it takes. I want every scrap of confiscated tech analyzed and weaponized. The next days passed in a blur of feverish activity. In the icy wastes of Antarctica, a massive superweapon took shape. Orbital shipyards churned out makeshift warships dripping with hastily adapted alien tech. Admiral Corax watched in stunned disbelief as his fleet was decimated. Impossible, he muttered. How could they have... His words died in his throat as a massive object accelerated from Earth's southern pole. The cosmic ram tore through the alien formation smoothly, obliterating millions in an instant. Akira's face appeared on every view screen in the battered Council fleet. His eyes burned with cold fury as he delivered his ultimatum. You came to exterminate us, he snarled. Instead, you've awakened a sleeping giant. Withdraw now or watch as we turn your own weapons against you, world by world. Korax's crystalline form trembled as he weighed his options. With a heavy heart, he gave the order to retreat. As the last council ships limped away, Akira turned to his assembled advisors. "This is only the beginning," he declared. "Prepare the colony ships. It's time humanity took its rightful place among the stars." In a distant sector, Orin watched the aftermath unfold with growing horror. He had sought to save his people, but in doing so, he may have doomed the entire galaxy. Prime Minister Akira's face filled the screen, his eyes cold and calculating as he addressed the retreating aliens. "This is only the beginning," he declared. "Humanity will take its rightful place among the stars." On the charred battlefields surrounding New York, teams of human scientists swarmed over the alien wreckage. Their hands moved with feverish intensity, stripping away advanced technology and loading it onto waiting transports. Within hours, the first reverse-engineered prototypes emerged from hastily constructed labs. Orin's comm unit crackled to life. Admiral Korax's battered face appeared, his crystalline features etched with defeat. "General, we've detected a massive surge of activity in Earth's orbital shipyards. They're building warships, dozens of them, maybe hundreds." The invasion unfolded with brutal efficiency. Human dropships streaked through Taurin's atmosphere, raining fire and destruction upon the pre-industrial cities below. Orin watched helplessly as incendiary weapons ignited entire forests, clearing the way for rapidly expanding human encampments. But as he convened an emergency session of the Zorgax High Command, the grim reality of their situation became clear. Their forces, already depleted from the war with the Krill, were in no position to challenge Earth's newfound military might. "Earth seeks nothing less than galactic domination," Orin explained, his voice heavy with the weight of this revelation. "They will subjugate or destroy every alien race that stands in their way." The chamber erupted into chaos. Half the generals demanded immediate action, calling for a preemptive strike to drive the humans from Tauren. Others argued for caution, insisting that appeasement was their only hope of survival. In the end, it was Orin who brokered a fragile compromise. With a heavy heart, he prepared to return to Earth, knowing that his next actions would shape the fate of countless civilizations. Prime Minister Akira's hologram loomed large in the negotiation chamber, his face a mask of hardly restrained fury. Orin steeled himself and made his proposal. Zorgax would recognize Earth's claim to Tauren in exchange for a temporary halt to further human expansion. Akira's eyes narrowed, calculating the benefits and drawbacks of the offer. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded curtly. "Very well, General. We accept your terms. For now." As the transmission ended, Orin slumped in his chair, exhaustion and dread washing over him. He had bought them time, but at what cost? And how long would it be before humanity's hunger for conquest overwhelmed even this tenuous agreement? Unknown to Orin, deep within the bowels of Earth's most secure military installations, Akira was already setting new plans in motion. Banks of supercomputers hummed with activity as elite teams of human hackers launched a silent invasion of their own. One by one, alien shipyards across the galaxy fell under Earth's control. Malicious AI code spread like a virus, hijacking production lines and repurposing them for humanity's grand designs. "Yes, General. He's demanding an immediate audience." With a resigned sigh, Xyloth nodded. Moments later, Akira's hologram materialized before him, the human's eyes blazing with terrifying aggression. "General," Akira sneered, "I grow weary of these delays. The Zorgax will submit to Earth's authority or face annihilation." Xyloth's tentacles coiled tightly. "Prime Minister, please, we seek only peaceful coexistence. Surely there's room for—" "Enough!" Akira's fist slammed down, causing his hologram to flicker. "You have one solar cycle to surrender your homeworld, or we take it by force." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Xyloth alone with his mounting dread. He turned to his second-in-command. "Convene the High Command, immediately." "Then what do you suggest?" Xyloth demanded. "We sit idly by as they conquer us world by world?" Days later, Xyloth's shuttle touched down on Taurin's scarred surface. He was escorted to a hastily constructed command center, where Earth's Viceroy, General Rex Harding, awaited. "You can and you will," Harding cut him off, "unless you'd prefer we turn your homeworld into a smoldering ruin." With no choice left, Xyloth capitulated. As he prepared to depart, a young Zorgax scientist pulled him aside, her voice barely above a whisper. Xyloth's blood ran cold. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. Racing back to his ship, he opened a secure channel to Admiral Corax of the Galactic Council. Corax's crystalline face hardened. "Understood, General. The Council's fleet is mobilizing as we speak. Hold fast, we're coming." As Xyloth's ship lifted off, he caught sight of the massive human armada assembling in Tauren's orbit. Below, the subjugated Zorgax colonists suffered under Earth's brutal occupation. His comms crackled to life. It was Admiral Corax again. "General, our forces have engaged the humans near Tauren's outer moons. The battle has begun." Xyloth stared out at the distant flashes of weapons fire, his heart heavy with the weight of his choices. He had unleashed this chain of events, and now the galaxy burned for it. As his ship accelerated towards the inferno, he could only hope it wasn't too late to stem the tide of humanity's conquering urge. "Admiral Corax," Xyloth's voice crackled over the comm, "our intel suggests targeting Akira's flagship. If we can capture him, we might force a ceasefire." "Understood, General. All ships, concentrate fire on the human command vessel." A barrage of energy beams and plasma torpedoes converged on Akira's sleek warship. For a moment, it seemed the gambit might succeed. Then, without warning, the human vessel's hull split open, revealing a nightmarish new weapon. Xyloth's sensor officer cried out in alarm. "Energy spike detected! It's—" On Tauren's surface, the situation rapidly deteriorated. Colonial General Harding's voice, cold and emotionless, echoed through the occupied cities. "Let this be a lesson to all who resist Earth's rightful dominion." "By the first ones," he whispered. "Akira plans to unleash a tailored pathogen against the Zorgax. This madness must be stopped." The Emergency Council summit that followed was grim. Species that had been bitter rivals for millennia now found themselves united by a common, overwhelming threat. The Cathar Protocols were drafted, codifying a new era of total war against humanity. On a view screen, Xyloth addressed the assembled alien leaders. "I will deploy our remaining ships to defend the Zorgax homeworld. We cannot allow Akira to deliver his genocidal weapon." Xyloth's face appeared on Corax's command screen, his eyes haunted by the weight of recent atrocities. "Admiral, our long-range sensors have detected Akira's fleet. They'll reach our outer colonies within hours." Corax's crystalline form pulsed with stubborn persistence. "Hold fast, General. We're coming. The line must be drawn here. No further." Alarms blared throughout the massive orbital facilities as human cyber warfare specialists breached their systems. Lexan workers, caught unaware, found themselves surrounded by heavily armed human Marines. "Everyone on the ground now!" barked a Marine commander, his weapon trained on a group of terrified shipwrights. Across the shipyards, similar scenes played out. Production lines ground to a halt as humans seized control of every vital node. Meanwhile, Akira's main armada engaged Corax's forces, drawing them away from Laxan. Xyloth's outdated Zorgax ships proved no match for Earth's superior technology. "Target those boarding craft," Xyloth ordered, his tentacles writhing in frustration. But his commands fell on deaf appendages as Zorgax crew members abandoned their post en masse. Within hours, the Lexan shipyards were fully under human control. Akira's technicians wasted no time reprogramming the facilities. Assembly cradles that once birthed majestic council vessels now churned out sleek, predatory human warships. Corax's fleet arrived too late, finding the shipyards already producing squadrons of enemy vessels. The Admiral's crystalline form pulsed with dismay as he assessed the situation. As if to punctuate Corax's realization, a massive new ship decloaked near the shipyards. The human supercarrier dwarfed anything in the Council's arsenal. "Sir," cried Corax's tactical officer, "unknown spatial anomaly detected." Before Corax could respond, the supercarrier's main weapon fired. Space itself seemed to twist and compress around the nearest council ships. Their hulls buckled and imploded, crushed by unimaginable gravitational forces. "All ships, fall back," Korax ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "We can't win this battle today." On Zorgax, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Xyloth watched helplessly as his remaining forces crumbled. In the capital, angry mobs filled the streets, their chants echoing through the air. "General Xyloth," the human leader's voice dripped with mockery, "I believe it's time we discuss the terms of your unconditional surrender." "Surrender." Xyloth's tentacles coiled tightly around the command console as he stared at Akira's smug hologram. Before he could respond, Admiral Korax's urgent transmission cut through. "General, fall back to Gorlak immediately. We're initiating Protocol Omega." Without hesitation, Xyloth severed the connection with Akira. "All ships, emergency jump to Gorlak shipyards." The lithe Talara, her scaled skin shimmering under the harsh lights, nodded sharply. "Jamming field activated, sir. Human sensors will be blind." Xyloth's ship docked and he rushed to join Korax. The Admiral's voice was low and urgent. "We're bringing everything online. Planet killers, reality warpers, the works. But we need time." A proximity alarm blared. Talara's eyes widened. "Massive hyper-jump signatures detected. It's the human armada." Space itself seemed to rupture as Akira's forces poured into the system. Swarms of heavily armored strike forces bore down on Gorlak, their weapons already charging. The void erupted in a maelstrom of energy beams and missiles. Xyloth watched in horror as a human planet cracker cleaved through 3 council cruisers with a single shot. "Sir!" Talara shouted over the din of battle. "Multiple teleportation signatures inside our perimeter." Before anyone could react, the station shuddered violently. Alarms screamed as security feeds showed corridors swarming with power-armored human marines. Xyloth's comm crackled. It was his ground commander, voice tight with strain. "We're being overrun! There's too many!" The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Korax turned to Talara, his crystalline face set in grim lines. "Take your best troops and push them back. We can't lose those shipyards." Talara saluted and sprinted from the command center. Xyloth watched the tactical displays as her armored spearhead plowed into the human forces. For a moment, it seemed they might succeed. Then Akira played his final card. The displays lit up as an unprecedented wave of teleportation signatures flooded the system. It was as if Earth had emptied itself, pouring every last soldier and war machine into the fight. Talara's voice, thick with static and desperation, came over the comm. "We're cut off! They're everywhere! We can't—" Xyloth's heart sank as he realized the Admiral's intent. "Korax, no! There has to be another way!" Korax's reply was drowned out by the sound of reality itself beginning to tear. The Gorlak shipyard shuddered, arcs of impossible energy crackling across its surface. Xyloth found himself grabbed by a security team and forcibly dragged to an escape pod. The last thing he saw before the pod launched was Korax, still at his post, as space began to warp around him. When it was over, Gorlak and everything around it for light years had been reduced to a slowly expanding cloud of subatomic particles. Xyloth's pod was recovered by a battered council cruiser. He stumbled onto the bridge, his tentacles slack with shock. The ship's captain turned to him, eyes haunted. "General, what do we do now?" Xyloth stared at the view screen, still showing the aftermath of Gorlak's destruction. The magnitude of what he had set in motion crashed over him. There would be no quick victory, no simple resolution. He had unleashed a conflict that threatened to consume the entire galaxy. His voice was barely a whisper as he replied, "We find a way to stop this, before it's too late for all of us." Xyloth's eyes remained fixed on the monitor, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. The destruction of Gorlak had left a void in more ways than one, and the weight of his decisions pressed down on him like a gravitational anomaly. "We find allies," he said, his voice growing stronger, "even among those we once called enemies. The humans have begun systematic extermination campaigns," Korax reported, his crystalline form pulsing with terrifying rage. Entire ecosystems reduced to ash. A junior officer burst into the room, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Urgent transmission, sir. It's from a human." Xyloth's hearts raced as he listened to Bran's proposal. A schism among the humans, a chance to drive a wedge into Akira's monolithic war machine. He exchanged glances with his advisors, seeing a glimmer of hope in their eyes for the first time in months. "We're listening, Governor," Xyloth said. The next weeks were a frenzy of encrypted transmissions and clandestine meetings. Bran's declaration of autonomy sent shockwaves through human-controlled space. Xyloth watched with grim satisfaction as Akira's forces scrambled to contain the growing insurrection. The journey to Dornash was tense, punctuated by the constant threat of ambush. As they dropped out of hyperspace, Xyloth's tactical officer gasped. "Sir, multiple signatures detected. It's Akira's armada." But before Akira's ships could open fire, a ragtag collection of vessels materialized between the two fleets. Bran's voice crackled over the comms. "This ends now, Akira. No more worlds will burn on your orders." Xyloth held his breath as Bran broadcast his ultimatum. For a moment it seemed Akira would order his ships to fire. Human and alien alike be damned. But then, improbably, the weapons went cold. "Your terms are acceptable?" Akira's voice was thick with barely suppressed fury. "For now." As the fleets disengaged, Xyloth slumped in his command chair. They had bought time, nothing more. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, the threat of renewed conflict ever present. But for the first time since this war began, he allowed himself to feel a flicker of genuine hope. Turning to his communications officer, Xyloth straightened his posture. "Hail Governor Bran's ship. We have much to discuss." Xyloth's tentacles twitched nervously as he stepped onto the bridge of Governor Bran's flagship. The human's stern face softened slightly as he extended a hand in greeting. "General Xyloth, your assistance could turn the tide of this conflict." Before Xyloth could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Bran's tactical officer shouted, "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. It's a Zorgax battle group." On the main view screen, a fleet of sleek Zorgax warships materialized. At their center loomed a massive dreadnought, its hull jam packed with weapons. "Incoming transmission," the comms officer announced. The screen flickered, revealing the face of Crown Prince Gordath. His eyes glittered with malice as he surveyed the bridge. "Traitors and weaklings," Gordath spat. "You will all burn for your crimes against the Zorgax Empire." Xyloth felt a chill run through his body. He had known Gordath since the prince was a hatchling, had seen the cruelty lurking behind those eyes. Now that cruelty had been given free rein. The transmission cut off abruptly. Bran turned to Xyloth, his face grim. "It seems your people have chosen a new path." "Sir," Bran's tactical officer called out, "the Zorgax fleet is moving to engage. They've launched fighters." Bran's eyes sharp as he assessed the situation. "We're outgunned and outnumbered. Plot an escape vector and—" "Wait," Xyloth interrupted, an idea forming. "I know Gordath's tactics. If we can lure his dreadnought into the Calyx Nebula, we might have a chance." "All ships form up," Bran ordered. "We make for the Calyx Nebula, and may whatever gods are left have mercy on us all." The Calyx Nebula shimmered with swirling clouds of ionized gas as Bran's fleet maneuvered through its treacherous currents. Xyloth stood on the bridge, his tentacles twitching as he monitored the sensors. Bran nodded grimly. "Let's hope your plan works, General. All ships prepare for combat." "Now," Xyloth shouted. But Gordath was not so easily defeated. The dreadnought's weapons came to life, vaporizing two of Bran's cruisers in a heartbeat. The bridge rocked as a glancing blow struck their own ship. Bran didn't hesitate. "Do it!" As they plunged deeper into the nebula, Gordath's dreadnought followed, its weapons tearing space apart around them. Xyloth held his breath as they entered the plasma pocket, feeling the ship shudder under the intense gravimetric forces. Their remaining ships unleashed a final, desperate volley. The weapons fire ignited the plasma, creating a chain reaction that engulfed Gordath's dreadnought. The massive ship twisted and buckled, secondary explosions rippling across its surface. We did it, Bran breathed, allowing himself a small smile. Xyloth's blood ran cold. We need to warn the others. Bran nodded. Agreed. We'll broadcast the evidence to every colony world. It's time to show the galaxy Akira's true colors. But Akira was not idle. Reports filtered in of brutal crackdowns across human space. Bran paced the war room, his face haggard. He's using terror to keep the colonies in line, Brand explained. Public executions, mass arrests, and he sent his best interrogator after us, Colonel Darius Kane. The name sent a shudder through the assembled rebels. Kane's reputation for cruelty was legendary. Their fears were realized when news reached them of Talara's capture. Xyloth's hearts ached for his former comrade, knowing the horrors she must have endured at Kane's hands. We need to evacuate, Bran decided. Kane will be coming for us next. They worked frantically, loading thousands of rebels onto disguised freighters. Xyloth coordinated with Corax, arranging a rendezvous point for the Council dissidents. As the last transport prepared to launch, alarms blared. Kane's forces had arrived, raining death from orbit. The ground shook as explosions tore through the rebel base. Xyloth wanted to protest, but he knew Brand was right. His survival was crucial to the resistance. As his shuttle blasted away from the dying world, Xyloth watched streaks of light marking the dispersal of the rebel fleet. Pain exploded through Xyloth's body as Kane activated the bioimplant. Through a haze of agony, he heard Kane explain the horrific consequences should the device be removed. The deck lurched beneath them as Corax overloaded the ship's reactor. Reality itself seemed to tear as the hyperspace manifolds ruptured. Kane's Marines vanished in the blinding light of the implosion, but the colonel himself managed to reach an escape pod. Xyloth's shuttle was ripped free by the shockwave, tumbling end over end. As the wormhole engulfed them, Xyloth caught a final glimpse of familiar space before they were hurled into the unknown. Xyloth's tentacles curled with determination. He had a choice to make, and the fate of the stars might hinge on his decision. Crenshaw, what do your scans show? Xyloth asked, turning to the human engineer. Jonah Crenshaw's eyes were fixed on his handheld device, brow furrowed in concentration. It's incredible, General. This entire world is essentially a massive machine. The outer shell is composed of materials I've never encountered before, but inside, it's like a self-contained ecosystem. Can we survive here? A voice called out from the group. It belonged to Lyra Chen, one of Brand's loyalists who had escaped with them through the wormhole. Xyloth nodded slowly. It appears so, but we must be cautious. We don't know what other surprises this world might hold. I'm calling it Sanctuary, Crenshaw announced one evening, his face illuminated by the soft glow of alien technology. It's fitting, don't you think? Xyloth agreed. As weeks turned to months, Sanctuary transformed. The ramshackle camp evolved into a fledgling city-state, its population a mix of human separatists and alien refugees. Xyloth found himself at the center of it all, working to forge an alliance government that bridged the gap between species. In a makeshift council chamber, Xyloth addressed the assembled leaders. We have an opportunity here to build something new, something better than what we left behind, but it will take all of us working together. The response was cautious but optimistic. Humans and aliens alike recognized the need for unity in the face of their shared exile. As Sanctuary flourished, Crenshaw's ambitious plan took shape. We can move the entire planet, he explained, gesturing to holographic schematics. The precursors who built this world equipped it with a faster-than-light drive of unimaginable power. The day of activation arrived. Sanctuary's population gathered in tense anticipation as Crenshaw initiated the startup sequence. The ground trembled beneath their feet as ancient engines roared to life. It's working, Crenshaw shouted over the deafening rumble. We're accelerating. Xyloth felt a surge of hope as the stars began to blur outside Sanctuary's transparent dome. But that hope was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the command center. Unknown vessels detected? A technician called out. They've locked onto our hyperspace wake. Xyloth's blood ran cold as the sensor data purposed into a chilling image. A fleet of Earth warships, led by a destroyer he recognized all too well. The destroyer's weapons lashed out, breaching Sanctuary's outer shields. Before Xyloth could react, the familiar shimmer of teleportation beams filled the air. Heavily armed Marines materialized, their weapons already blazing. "All forces, defend Sanctuary!" Xyloth roared into his communicator. The sounds of battle erupted across the megastructure's verdant interior. As Xyloth rallied his troops, he caught sight of Kane himself stepping through a shimmering portal. The colonel's eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. "Did you really think you could escape me, alien?" Kane sneered. Xyloth's mind raced. He could order Crenshaw to shut down the engines, stranding them here but potentially shaking Kane's pursuit. Or they could press on, risking everything on the slim hope of reaching Brand's hidden base. Xyloth's tentacles tightened into fists as he made his choice. "Crenshaw, initiate emergency protocol Omega, now!" The engineer's eyes widened in shock. "But sir, that'll—" "Do it!" Xyloth barked. Kane's smirk faltered. "What have you done, alien?" Kane's face contorted with rage. He gestured to his Marines. "Take the engineer. I want to know every secret this rock is hiding." "You've only delayed the inevitable," Kane sneered. Over the next hellish weeks, Xyloth watched helplessly as Kane's forces methodically conquered Sanctuary. The colonel's tactics were brutally efficient, overwhelming the colonists' makeshift defenses. From his hidden command post deep within Sanctuary's biospheres, Xyloth coordinated what resistance he could. But each day brought fresh horrors. Lyra Chen's voice crackled over the comms, thick with exhaustion and despair. "They've taken the agricultural domes," she reported. "Hundreds dead. We can't hold out much longer." Xyloth's reply was cut short as alarms blared. Warning lights flashed red across his monitors. "Kane," Xyloth hissed. He'd found them. Months passed. Sanctuary's once verdant landscape was scarred by strip mining and vast industrial complexes. Xyloth watched from hiding as massive new warships took shape in orbital dry docks, Akira's juggernauts. As they rocketed away from the disintegrating megastructure, Xyloth glimpsed Akira's fleet vanishing in a maelstrom of antimatter lightning. Sanctuary, and all it represented, was gone. Xyloth's tentacles twitched. He had no answer. "Life support at 12%, announced the sensor operator, his voice cracking with fatigue. "We have maybe 2 days left before—" "Negative, General," replied Lyra Chen, her fingers dancing across the navigation console. "But we're running dangerously low on fuel. Another jump could leave us stranded." Xyloth's heart sank. Every choice seemed to lead to certain doom. He opened his mouth to speak when a shout from the sensor station cut him off. "Energy signatures detected," the crewman exclaimed, his eyes wide. "Faint, but definitely artificial. Coming from that nebula bearing 047 Mark 12. "How much fuel for one more jump?" Xyloth asked. "We're dead either way," Xyloth interrupted. "Plot the course. We jump in 5 minutes." The next few moments were a blur of activity as the crew prepared for what might be their final desperate gamble. Xyloth felt the familiar lurch as the ancient engines engaged, hurling them across the vast emptiness of space. Xyloth's tentacles curled in anticipation of battle, but as the ships drew closer, he realized they weren't the sleek destroyers of Akira's fleet. These were cobbled-together vessels, a ragtag assortment that looked more like mining craft than warships. Xyloth leaned forward. "This is General Xyloth of the—" He hesitated. What was he now? Leader of a failed rebellion? A war criminal? Hours later, Xyloth stood before a gathering of human colonists in a makeshift assembly hall. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Jarek, regarded him with a mix of awe and suspicion. "So the famous alien general graces us with his presence," Jarek said, his voice tinged with sarcasm. "Come to lead us in another glorious defeat?" "And what do you propose we do about it?" he challenged. As Xyloth was led to his assigned quarters, little more than a converted storage shed, he heard Jarek speaking quietly to his advisors. "Send word to the other settlements. It's time for a summit." Xyloth's tentacles curled with a mix of hope and dread. The wheels of resistance were turning once again, but would the outcome be any different this time? "The summit's concluded," he said without preamble. We're moving forward with your plan. Within days, Xyloth found himself aboard a repurposed freighter, leading a strike team towards one of Akira's primary shipyards. The vessel's hold was crammed with explosives and EMP devices salvaged from abandoned military caches. As they approached their target, Xyloth addressed the assembled rebels, a motley mix of humans and aliens united by desperation. "We hit fast and we hit hard," he said, his translator struggling to convey the steel in his voice. "Every ship we destroy is one less weapon Akira can use against innocents." As they fled amid the chaos, Xyloth allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. It was a start. Over the following months, similar strikes decimated Akira's military-industrial complex. Refineries erupted in flames. Supply convoys vanished into the void. Each successful operation bolstered the rebels' confidence and attracted new recruits. Xyloth stood before a holomap, studying the latest intelligence reports. His tentacles coiled tight with rage as he absorbed the nightmarish images. "Kane!" he hissed. The colonel's response to the rebel insurgency was as swift as it was brutal. Entire settlements on fringe worlds had been reduced to ash, their inhabitants massacred without mercy. The infamous Purifier Corps left nothing but corpses and scorched earth in their wake. "General, we've done it. We're in." The technician grinned. "They won't. We're ghosts in their system." Amid the triumph, however, a chilling discovery. Xyloth stared at the decoded files, his blood running cold. "No," he whispered. "Even Akira wouldn't—" "We need to warn everyone," Xyloth said, his voice hoarse. "Every settled planet, every outpost. We don't have much time." The next weeks were a blur of frantic activity. As reports of the first outbreaks trickled in, Xyloth coordinated with the rebellion's top minds, searching desperately for a defense against Akira's monstrous creation. In a makeshift lab deep within an asteroid base, Xyloth watched as a team of alien and human scientists worked tirelessly. Their efforts paid off with a temporary vaccine, buying precious time for evacuation efforts. But it wasn't enough. Millions perished as the virus swept through densely populated worlds. Xyloth's nightmares were filled with the agonized screams of the dying. In a secured briefing room, Xyloth addressed the rebellion's inner circle. The faces before him were haggard, worn down by months of desperate struggle. Jarek, his face lined with new scars, nodded grimly. "So what's our next move, General?" Years passed in a brutal war of attrition. Xyloth's guerrilla tactics slowly crippled Akira's supply lines, but victory remained elusive. The alien general's tentacles twitched with nervous energy as he studied the latest intelligence reports. "We've found it," Lyra announced, her voice tight with anticipation. "Akira's stronghold." "He's massing troops," Jarek growled, pointing to troop transports converging on the base. "Purifier Corps. This is it, the final push to wipe us out." Xyloth's mind raced. "Then we strike first. Gather every militia, every defector we can muster. It's time to end this." Days later, a ragtag armada of rebel ships dropped out of hyperspace above the dwarf planet. Xyloth stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the imposing defenses arrayed against them. "All units commence attack," he ordered. The space above the planet erupted in furious combat. Rebel fighters swarmed Akira's defense platforms, while larger vessels engaged in brutal broadside exchanges. For a moment, it seemed the element of surprise had given them the upper hand. Then reality tore apart. Xyloth's tentacles curled in fury. "Press the attack! We can't turn back now!" What followed was weeks of grinding planetary assault. The rebels carved out a tenuous foothold, paying for every meter of ground with blood and lives. Xyloth found himself in the thick of the fighting, his translator struggling to keep up with the cacophony of alien battle cries and human curses. "Sir, we're ready," a technician reported. "Antimatter impactors are online." The scarred human grinned maniacally, hefting a plasma cannon. "Come to die, alien scum!" Their battle was swift and brutal. Kane's Purifier troops fell to Xyloth's strike team, but the two leaders found themselves locked in vicious hand-to-hand combat. Xyloth's tentacles lashed out, seeking vulnerable points in Kane's armor. "Akira!" he roared. Kane used the distraction to break free, vanishing into the chaos of the battle. Xyloth's calm crackled to life. Xyloth's heart soared, but the feeling was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the complex. Biohazard detected, an emotionless voice announced. Extinction-level event imminent. Evacuate immediately. As Xyloth raced for an evacuation shuttle, his comm erupted with panic chatter. The captured transport carrying Akira had suffered a catastrophic systems failure during hyperspace jump. Xyloth's blood ran cold as Akira's final message played across all frequencies. You've won nothing, alien filth. My weapon will sterilize this galaxy. Humanity will inherit the stars, even if I'm not there to see it. Lyra's fingers flew across the flickering control panel. Life support at 62%. Hyperdrive unstable. We've got maybe 2 more jumps before it gives out completely. Xyloth's heart sank. He keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, brace for emergency jump. Destination unknown. Xyloth stared at the holographic display in horror. The green miasma spread like a cancer, devouring entire star systems in its wake. We need to warn everyone, Xyloth said, his voice hoarse. Every settled world, every outpost. Xyloth nodded grimly. Pull up the intel we extracted from Akira's moles. There must be rebel cells beyond the cloud's projected path. They pored over fragmented data, searching for any hope. A set of coordinates caught Xyloth's eye, a remote fringe colony mentioned in intercepted communications. The freighter limped into orbit around a nondescript world. A tense hail from the surface was answered by Xyloth's rebel codes. Relief flooded through him as a familiar voice crackled over the comm. Hours later, Xyloth stood in a makeshift lab, facing a motley collection of scientists. At their head was Dr. Venara, a Zorgax with iridescent scales and multifaceted eyes. We've been monitoring the cloud's spread, Venara said, her translator struggling with the complex scientific terms. Its genetic reprogramming capabilities are unprecedented. Xyloth's tentacles coiled tightly. Can you stop it? Venara's eyes flickered uncertainly. We have a theory. If we can re-encode the Pandora variant's genetic sequences... Shut it down, Venara screeched. The Pandora sample imploded, leaving behind a swirling vortex of chaotic energy that threatened to breach containment. Xyloth stared at the smoldering remains of the lab, his heart's heavy. Back to square one, he muttered. Venara's multifaceted eyes glimmered with perseverance. Not quite. There might be another way. She spoke of ancient legends, whispered among the oldest spacefaring races. Tales of a Genesis matrix, a cosmic wellspring of life itself. Xyloth's tentacles twitched skeptically. Fairy tales and myths won't save us, Doctor. Perhaps, Venara conceded. But what if they're based on truth? If even fragments of such technology exist? He assembled a team of his most skilled operatives. Their mission, to scour the galaxy for any trace of the fabled Genesis matrix. All hands prepare for jump. We have a galaxy to save. Xyloth's flagship emerged from hyperspace, its hull scarred and patched from countless battles. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a once vibrant garden world, now shrouded in sickly green mist. Status report, Xyloth ordered, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Xyloth remained tense. He'd seen too many false dawns in this grueling war. Sir, Jarek called out, his voice tight. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the surface. The holomap zoomed in, revealing pockets of swirling light amidst the receding mist. As they watched, patches of verdant growth erupted from the barren soil. It's working, Venara breathed, her multifaceted eyes wide with wonder. The Matrix is restarting the planet's biosphere. Xyloth allowed himself a moment of hope before reality reasserted itself. How long until we can safely reintroduce complex life forms? Venara's enthusiasm dimmed. Months at least, maybe years for a full ecosystem. On the bridge of an Orc ship, Xyloth watched as robotic drones seeded a barren world with synthetic spores. The first step in a painstaking process of rebirth. General, we've intercepted communications from Kane's forces. You need to see this. The alien scum think they've won, but they've merely delayed the inevitable. We will purge every world they've tainted with their unholy Genesis abomination. Humanity alone will inherit the stars. Xyloth's hearts clenched as tactical data streamed in. A stolen fleet of warships, manned by the most zealous human supremacists, bearing down on the fledgling colonies. "All ships, battle stations," Xyloth barked. "Evacuate any world in Kane's path. If we can't hold it, we scorch it ourselves." The next days blurred into a nightmarish montage of desperate evacuations and scorched earth tactics. Xyloth watched world after world reduced to lifeless husks, his own weapons carving great furrows into barely healed landscapes. "We can't keep this up forever," Lyra said, her voice hollow. "Every world we lose sets us back years." Jarek nodded grimly. "Kane's zealots are willing to throw away everything. How do we fight that?" Xyloth's tentacles coiled tightly. He had no easy answers, only the crushing certainty that their next moves would determine the fate of countless species. As alarms blared once more, signaling another incoming attack, Xyloth steeled himself for the battles to come. The war for galactic rebirth had entered a new, even more desperate phase. Xyloth's tentacles twitched as he surveyed the holographic display of the battered fringe worlds. Kane's forces had left a trail of devastation, reducing once thriving colonies to lifeless husks. The general's hearts ached with each red indicator that winked out, signaling another world lost to the fanatics' relentless assault. "Sir, we've lost contact with Outpost Zeta 9, Lyra reported, her voice tight with exhaustion. "That's the third staging area we've had to abandon this cycle." Jarek limped to Xyloth's side, his cybernetic leg whirring softly. "Our perimeter is collapsing faster than we can reinforce it. At this rate, the core worlds will be exposed within days." Xyloth's mind raced, calculating probabilities and weighing impossible choices. He keyed the comm, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "All senior staff and allied commanders, report to the war room immediately." Minutes later, Xyloth faced a grim assembly of battle-worn officers. General Corvus of the Zorgax hegemony stood erect and rigid, his iridescent scales dulled by fatigue. Beside him, the reformed human Admiral Halen paced nervously, her fingers twitching towards a non-existent sidearm. "We're out of options," Xyloth began without preamble. "Our forces are stretched beyond the breaking point. The Genesis Matrix worlds are defenseless against Kane's onslaught." A heavy silence fell over the room. Halen broke it, her voice tight with desperation. "There might be one option left, but you're not going to like it." All eyes turned to the Admiral as she outlined her plan. Xyloth's tentacles coiled tightly as he listened, revulsion warring with grim necessity. "The Yerk," Corvus spat, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Those barbaric marauders are no better than Kane's zealots." Halen's eyes flashed. "They're monsters, yes, but they're monsters with firepower. And right now, that's exactly what we need." Xyloth didn't need to hear the rest. His decision crystallized in that moment of clarity. "Make the call," he ordered Halen. "Whatever it takes, get the Yersh on our side." The next hours passed in a blur of feverish activity. Encrypted transmissions bounced between Xyloth's flagship and the lawless fringes of known space. When the hollow projector flickered to life, revealing the scarred visage of Admiral Greyvok, Xyloth steeled himself for the negotiations to come. Greyvok's mismatched eyes, one cybernetic, one organic, gleamed with predatory intelligence. "So the mighty General Xyloth comes crawling to us vermin for help." His translator rendered his guttural language into a silky purr. "How the self-righteous have fallen." Xyloth swallowed his pride. "Name your price, Greyvok. We need your fleets, and we need them now." "Oh, how I look forward to working with you, General. We'll carve our names into the stars with the blood of our enemies." "Korvask's shock troopers are ready to deploy?" Greyvok's gravelly voice rasped over the comm. "Just say the word, and we'll turn Salary Prime into a cosmic graveyard." Xyloth hesitated, his inner eyelids flickering rapidly. The weight of his decision pressed down upon him like a neutron star. "Proceed with the assault," he finally ordered, his voice hollow. The Yerch attack unfolded with brutal efficiency. Their ships tore through Solari Prime's orbital defenses, pulse cannons vaporizing entire platforms. Xyloth watched in horrified fascination as illegal biogenetic munitions burst against Kane's fortifications, liquefying defenders in seconds. Lyra's voice shook as she reported, "Sir, Korvask's boarding parties have breached the main shipyards. They're slaughtering everyone." On the tactical displays, Xyloth saw red dots wink out by the hundreds as Yeerk shock troopers rampaged through the facilities. Engineers, technicians, even non-combatants, all were cut down without mercy. "We have to stop this," Jarek growled, his cybernetic fists clenching. Xyloth's reply was interrupted by Greyvox's triumphant howl. "Salary's foundries are in ruins. Kane's fleet is crippled." The Yeerk admiral's mismatched eyes gleamed with savage joy as he outlined the next phase of the assault. Xyloth felt bile rise in his throat as he listened to Greyvox's plans for orbital bombardment. Hours passed in a nightmarish blur. Xyloth stood rigid on the bridge, forcing himself to bear witness as the Yeerk reduced Salary Prime to a molten hellscape. Continent-sized swaths of the planet glowed white-hot on thermal scans, pockmarked by radioactive craters. "I'm picking up a transmission," Lyra announced, her voice barely above a whisper. It's Kane." The scarred face of humanity's would-be conqueror filled the view screen, his eyes wild with desperation. "To any loyal forces, this is your rightful leader. We require immediate extraction from—" Xyloth watched in mute horror as Kane's depleted forces materialized on the planet's irradiated wastes, only to find themselves surrounded by Yeerk war machines. Greyvox's mocking voice echoed across all frequencies. "Welcome to your new kingdom, Conqueror. Now let's see how well those human ashes fertilize the Genesis Matrix, shall we?" The Yeerk guns opened fire, their energy beams carving great furrows through the huddled masses of Kane's devotees. Xyloth turned away from the screens, unable to stomach the slaughter, but Greyvox's gleeful commentary left nothing to the imagination. When the barrage finally ceased, Salary Prime was little more than a smoldering cinder. Kane's crusade and the man himself had been reduced to less than cosmic dust. In the silence that followed, Xyloth faced his inner circle. Corvus stood rigid, mandibles clicking in agitation. Halen's face was ashen, her eyes haunted. "We've won," Xyloth said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "But at what cost?" Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Jarek's hands flew across the console, his expression grim. Xyloth's heart sank as he realized the true price of their victory. The cycle of violence would continue, with new masters staking their claim on rejuvenated worlds. He stared out at the stars, wondering if true peace would ever be possible in a galaxy scarred by such ruthless conflict. His comm unit chirped, breaking the pastoral silence. "General," Lyra's voice crackled, "we've detected anomalies in the Genesis distribution network. Crop yields are dropping at an alarming rate." "Confirmed, sir. Biogenic contaminants. Fifth-wave signatures." The general's eyes narrowed as he watched smoke rise from a distant settlement. "Deploy the Legionnaires. Find the perpetrators and bring them in." Xyloth's reply was cut short by a deafening explosion. The command center shook, alarms blaring as smoke filled the air. Through the haze, Xyloth saw a figure materialize. A human male with cold, familiar eyes. "Hello, General," the man said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Carrick, and this is just the beginning." "We must strike hard and fast," General Corvus insisted, mandibles clicking furiously. "Crush these human insurgents before they gain more ground." Admiral Halen shook her head. "That's exactly the kind of heavy-handed response they're counting on. We need to show restraint, work towards reconciliation." "Reconciliation?" Greyvox sneered. "While you debate niceties, my Yeerk brothers bleed containing this mess. We demand compensation, new territories, resource rights." The arguments devolved into shouting matches. Xyloth's tentacles twitched in agitation as he surveyed the fractured alliance. He opened his mouth to call for order when a priority alert flashed across his neural interface. "Impossible," he breathed, staring at the data in disbelief. In the silence that followed, All eyes turned to Xyloth. The weight of countless lives pressed down upon him as he formulated a daring plan. "Get me a secure line to Sarek," he ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "It's time to make a deal with the devil." As his staff scrambled to comply, Xyloth's gaze drifted to a holographic display of Zorgax Prime. His tentacles coiled tightly as he contemplated the daring strike that might be their only hope for survival. "Assemble Strike Team Omega," he said quietly. "We're going to cut the head off this snake." Xyloth's tentacles tightened around the tactical display as he surveyed the deployment of Strike Team Omega. The elite operatives, a motley crew of human-alien hybrids, moved with practiced efficiency through the streets of Arcadius. Their leader, Vorson, a hulking half-Zorgax with cybernetic enhancements glinting in the dim light, signaled the all-clear. Xyloth nodded, his inner eyelids flickering rapidly. "Proceed to launch Bay Alpha. May the void grant you swift passage." Xyloth leaned forward, his voice low and measured. "A temporary ceasefire. In exchange, I'm prepared to offer greater autonomy for human colonies." Cherek's eyes narrowed. "And why should we trust you?" The transmission cut out, leaving Xyloth alone with the weight of his decisions. He turned to watch as Strike Team Omega's fighter bombers shimmered into cloaked invisibility, streaking toward Zorgax Prime. "We have him cornered," Vorson's voice crackled, punctuated by weapons fire. "He's making a break for the shuttle bay." The renegade Zorgax whirled, energy pistol raised. "Never! The new order will—" His words were cut short as Vorson's plasma rifle discharged. Kranktov crumpled, stunned but alive. Xyloth exhaled slowly, allowing himself a moment of relief before addressing his staff. "Prepare for Phase 2. We need to solidify our control over the hegemony before—" A priority alert flashed across his neural interface. Xyloth's heart sank as he processed the information. Across Coalition space, newly liberated worlds were declaring their intention to realign with Carek's human primacy charter. Admiral Halen's face appeared on a nearby screen, her expression grim. "Sir, we're receiving reports of unrest on multiple fronts. The fifth wave is moving faster than anticipated." "Send word to our remaining outposts," Xyloth ordered, his voice heavy. "We need to shore up our defenses and prepare for—" My general," the Yerk mercenary purred. "It seems your little house of cards is tumbling down. Perhaps it's time we renegotiate the terms of our arrangement." "Initiate Protocol Omega," he ordered. "Grant autonomy charters to human colonies aligned with the fifth wave." Halen's eyes widened. "Sir, are you certain? That could—" "It's our only option for maintaining stability," Xyloth interrupted. "Have the Coalition Council draft the self-governance agreements immediately." That illusion shattered as alarms blared throughout Coalition Command. Jarek's hands flew across his console, pulling up urgent reports. "Sir, we're detecting widespread sabotage at our shipyards," he announced, voice tight. "Crucial components infected with viruses. Production schedules are in chaos." "Carrick," Xyloth hissed, activating a secure channel. The human separatist leader's face appeared, wearing a mask of feigned innocence. "Is there a problem, General?" "You know damn well there is," Xyloth growled. "This violates our agreement. Cease these attacks immediately or—" Cherek's eyes hardened. "Or what? You'll subjugate us again?" "No, Xyloth. The time for half measures is over. Total human autonomy and primacy across all reclaimed worlds. Those are our terms." The transmission cut out. Xyloth turned to find Admiral Halen at his side, her expression grim. "This is your last chance, alien," the human snarled. "Relinquish all power to us, or watch your precious coalition burn. Deploy the Nexus Legions, all of them." Across the galaxy, Coalition warships dropped out of hyperspace. Plasma cannons flared as they engaged fifth-wave strongholds. On a dozen worlds, Nexus troops clashed with human extremists, wielding horrific bioweapons that melted flesh from bone. From his command center, Xyloth coordinated the multi-front offensive. Reports of victories and losses blurred together as the hours stretched on. A priority alert cut through the din. Admiral Halen's face appeared, streaked with blood and grime. "Sir, we've confirmed IRCH weapon signatures," she reported. Greyvox mercenaries have been supplying Sarek's forces in secret. It's over, Xyloth, Carrick growled. Surrender now, and I might let your people live as our subjects. Xyloth's eyes locked onto Sarek's, his tentacles coiling tightly. In that frozen moment, the weight of billions of lives pressed down upon him. Then with lightning speed, the general's cybernetic implants activated. A shimmering energy field erupted around Xyloth, deflecting Sarek's plasma bolt. Alarms blared as coalition security forces flooded the command center. Sarek snarled, tapping his wrist communicator. Xyla, now! Sir, we're under attack. Fifth-wave insurgents have breached our defensive perimeter on multiple fronts. Xyloth's mind raced, processing tactical data even as he dove for cover. Deploy the Nexus Legions, he ordered. All of them. We can't let this spread further. Admiral Halen's hologram flickered to life on Xyloth's tactical display. Her face was streaked with blood and grime. Sir, confirmed Orc weapon signatures. Greyvox mercenaries have been supplying Sarek in secret. On a dozen worlds, coalition forces donned hermetically sealed battlesuits. Decontamination strikes rained down, transforming once thriving cities into radiotoxic wastelands. In the Varenian capital, Vorsen's team moved with cold efficiency. Their target, a fifth-wave leadership enclave. As they breached the compound, Vorsen's enhanced senses detected a familiar energy signature. Sir, he calmed Xyloth, Kranktov is here. Vorsen nodded, signaling his team to advance. They rounded a corner to find Kranktov addressing a group of human separatists. Plasma fire erupted as Vorsen's team engaged. In the ensuing chaos, Kranktov fled, leaving his would-be allies to their fate. Back in the Coalition Command Center, Xyloth watched as sectors blinked red across the galactic map. Colonial administrations declared neutrality or pledged allegiance to human supremacist factions. We're losing control, Admiral Halen reported grimly. Our forces are spread too thin. Xyloth's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as he processed the information. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. Prepare Strike Team Omega, he ordered. We're initiating Protocol Pandora. Sir, Admiral Halen's voice cut through his thoughts. Strike Team Omega is assembled and awaiting your orders. Xyloth nodded, inserting the crystal into a secure terminal. As lines of ancient code scrolled across the screen, he turned to address his team. What I'm about to do will change everything, he said, his voice low. We're activating Protocol Pandora. The command center fell silent as Xyloth's fingers danced across the interface. Deep in the void of space, long-dormant systems stirred to life. The derelict Pruung shipyards, vast orbital foundries predating known history, hummed with renewed energy. General, we're detecting massive power surges in the Zeta Reticuli sector. Something's awakening. Xyloth's gaze remained fixed on the tactical display. Prepare for combat operations on an unprecedented scale. To the fall of the Coalition, he sneered. Report, he barked. The void erupted with searing light as an armada of sleek alien vessels materialized. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, weapons primed and humming with terrifying energy. On Ankara Prime, Drakthas watched in horror as his impregnable fortress crumbled under relentless bombardment. Gravitic lances reduced hardened bunkers to slag, while antimatter warheads vaporized entire city blocks. Fall back, he roared, but it was too late. The sky ignited as atmosphere-igniting firestorms consumed what remained of his forces. We have to negotiate, one of them pleaded. We can't win against this. Xyla's eyes blazed with defiance, but the words died in her throat as the bunker trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling as the Pruung drones began their final assault. As coalition troops closed in on the last bastions of resistance, Xyloth allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The galaxy trembled on the precipice of a new era, forged in the fires of a war unlike any before it. But even as victory seemed within reach, the general knew that the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The price of peace would be high, and the wounds inflicted by this conflict would take generations to heal. As reports of surrenders and capitulations flooded in, Xyloth's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the command center's viewports. The Pruung's armada hung there, a silent reminder of the awesome power he had unleashed. The Pruung's armada hung in space like a silent, gleaming judgment. Xyloth's inner eyelids flickered as he surveyed the aftermath of their devastating assault. Tactical displays showed pockets of resistance crumbling across the galaxy, their once mighty forces reduced to scattered remnants. Xyloth nodded, his tentacles coiling tightly. Initiate containment protocols. I want all insurgent leaders under maximum security lockdown. As coalition forces moved to secure the shattered remains of the rebellion, Xyloth turned his attention to the monumental task ahead. The galaxy lay in ruins, countless worlds reduced to radioactive wastelands by the brutal efficiency of the Pruung's drones. In the newly established chambers of the Galactic Consortium, tensions simmered beneath a veneer of cooperation. Xyla, her face etched with bitterness, took her seat alongside alien representatives. "We cannot ignore the atrocities committed in the name of peace," she spat, glaring at Xyloth across the conference table. The general met her gaze unflinchingly. "Nor can we forget the xenocidal agenda that necessitated such measures. Our path forward must be one of true integration." On the bridge of the coalition flagship Inexorable, Xyloth briefed his strike team. "Our mission is to neutralize Kranktov and dismantle his operation. Failure is not an option." Xyloth's tentacles lashed out, disarming Kranktov with brutal efficiency. "Your crusade ends here," he stated coldly. As the last bastions of resistance fell, a new challenge arose. On the Krill colony of Dracora, Greyvox entrenched Irsch pirates unleashed devastating biogenic weapons, their desperation evident in the indiscriminate destruction. Xyloth's inner eyelids narrowed as he assessed the situation. With grim persistence, he gave the order that would forever mark his legacy. "Initiate Armageddon sequence." The Pruung's fleet moved into position, their weapons primed with terrifying power. As muon stream plasma torrents pierced Dracora's core, Xyloth watched impassively. The planet's destruction sent shockwaves through the remaining insurgent cells, breaking their will to continue the fight. As he stepped back from the podium, Xyloth knew his work was not nearly finished. The specter of humanity's potential for violence would always loom, but perhaps now, tempered by the crucible of shared suffering, a new era of true cooperation could begin. "General," a young consortium officer approached, datapad in hand. "The final decommissioning sequence is ready to begin." Xyloth's inner eyelids flickered. "Proceed." Across the vast chamber, lights dimmed as autonomous matrices powered down one by one. The hum of dormant energy cores faded to silence. Xyloth watched, his tentacles coiling tightly as each drone's eyes flickered out. "Need to carefully frame the general's legacy," one voice insisted. "The public isn't ready for the full truth." Xyloth's eyebrows furrowed. The sanitization of history had begun. "Come to gloat, alien?" she snarled. "Your presence here is a violation of your amnesty terms," Xyloth stated flatly. Xyla laughed, a harsh sound. "What does it matter now? Your precious consortium can play pretend all they want. But there are those who remember. The sixth wave lives." Security drones materialized, flanking Xyla. She didn't resist as they led her away, but her parting words hung in the air. "The fire you unleashed will never truly die, Xyloth. Not while humanity endures." He stood motionless as the inferno consumed him, erasing all trace of the terrible power he had wielded. In his final moments, Xyloth gazed at the stars beyond the viewports, wondering if the price of peace had truly been worth it. The shipyards erupted in a blinding flash, visible across light years. In the consortium chambers, delegates fell silent as reports flooded in. The Pruung's legacy was no more, and with it, the last living link to an era they desperately wished to forget.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.